Okay, your audio is muted.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I just had to look your Skype and MS Teams statements, and you could have formatted your list a bit better.
I know. I
Yeah, just one single line.
well, I mean, you know, this is our first episode on Rumble Premier or
Okay.
Premium. So
Yeah,
just
just bring my head down a bit.
we y- you just really helped me out there, dude. Thanks, dude.
My pleasure.
Okay, we've got it all set up. It actually did work out pretty good on. It actually did work out pretty good on the Premiere thing. Had the lock on there, everything. I was kind of worried about that because, well, I kind of flipped out. I thought that they scammed me into getting premium. you know, I,
I don't know. I don't know whose partner's been on top and bottom. Mm.
what?
Anyway, yes, I was just looking at your banners, just on top and bottom. How did they scam you?
Huh? Well, I was thinking that
How
I
did
started flipping out because, like, I it didn't dawn on me that freaking I had to be in the what do they call that, where the monetization thing, or the set. I forgot
Excuse
what
me.
it was, but anyhow, it starts on May the 1st, so I ended up getting it.
Yesterday.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
ended up doing this. I'm gonna make Untethered or Premium, uh, Rumble Premium special, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stream this and put it out on the other platforms later on. So
Okay. After you have a look through premium, so I'm still not sure exactly.
you're gonna have to repeat that because I didn't get to hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I'm still not sure what you're receiving for that membership.
I don't either. To be honest, I
So
have
you
no.
just clicked on an icon or a tick box and
Well, I
didn't
mean,
read it.
it says that I get the same crap that freaking all the other platforms says. They they give you like this cool little freaking check mark, say that you get all this premium content that nobody else is allowed to watch or some shit like that. You
Good
know,
morning. Good evening. How's it going?
hey, Mr. Robot. But I see it better this way. It's a lot better than what I got from freaking Odyssey. Like Odyssey was a freaking joke, dude. I, I
Okay.
actually bought a badge from them. That's all I got. Like, here's your badge.
Uh,
I got like maybe
what, an actual metal badge or just a virtual badge?
a virtual badge. See,
You
it's
got to pay on Odyssey to host videos, don't you?
no, you get to do that for free, but still, I mean, I only got like 2 subscribers in a year. You know, it's like, come on, dude, seriously. What the
One, like, I was uploading files, and then it got to a point where they're like, "Nah, you got to buy tokens or something."
Oh, you have to pay into it, yeah. You have to pay into the token system. And you should be able to get those for free if you watch other people's tokens or videos.
Oh,
So you've actually got to like watch other people's stuff. I,
no,
If it's good
it's a
content,
lot of
then,
effort.
well, if it's good content then, and content that you're interested in, then fair enough. But I'm not just going to watch something just for the sake of watching something.
what's wrong with you, man?
Actually, a good idea. I could probably make
Right?
a bot to watch stuff for me. You know, just
I've
auto.
got better things to do with my time. Just let's just
Wow.
say that.
I don't believe you for 1 second, Mark.
Now
Yeah.
on some of these talking points, I have absolutely no background in it, like the stuff that Mr. Robot put up with Brazil and everything.
Oh yeah,
So when we get into that, I want you to take lead and kind of open it up and discuss it.
Yeah, I'll just say what I know, and we can
And,
discuss what we think that means.
and see, I put these in order because like me, you, and Mark are here. So I did everything here in the United States for first because everybody knows that like America, the United States is the most important part of the news.
Yay, Yankee land.
Yeah.
Please. Please.
Yeah. All eyes are on the United States because we are the greatest nation that was ever brought in.
Will Britannia rules the waves.
No, what's the greatest nation? Remember, you got to make it great again. It's not great anymore.
Well, I actually wanted to say that.
That's why
Make
we've
America
got the
great.
titles. That's why we've got the word "great" in our country's name.
Well,
Yeah, well, if you have to do that, then you're not really that great, are you? It's kind of.
well, see, here in the United States, we've closed down the disinformation office, so we don't tolerate that shit.
I don't know. Every nation has its problems right now. To be honest, I don't know if there's anywhere that's great right now.
Now, I did put England above
United Kingdom.
Australia because on the topics.
Yeah.
You'd rather live there?
No, it's just the fact that they actually do have like an election that took place. Like the only thing you had on there was like Wikipedia links of all these bastards in Australia and shit. You know?
Yeah.
It was like,
Well, we just have no good options. That's the problem. And
You
the
guys-
other problem is the way our election works. Fuck,
In
I
that
got a
case,
vote
create your
today,
own
by the
party.
way.
no, I'm
Create
saying,
your
is there an election go? Was there an election that
There's an election today. I have to go vote
Is that
after this.
dude?
local election?
You never even posted a link about it. You have no
Yeah, I
interest
didn't know.
whatsoever, dude.
I don't have much hope for what's going on right now here.
Okay, so
I
you're
think
gonna
next election, maybe in 4 years, we'll have a chance. But
you're
I'm
gonna
gonna do my part. We'll
you're gonna
see.
have to cover that.
It's local elections.
No,
Province
federal.
elections. Federal.
Yeah, we're getting a new
Okay.
prime minister for the king.
Okay,
No.
I've not seen any report on that.
Now, for
Yeah.
anybody who
Everyone's looking at America right now, not looking at us.
and I did it appropriately here, but I think I might have done it backwards on these last parts. What I did in prioritizing is I went ahead and I put Canadian politics after freaking Australian.
And I'm just surprised I didn't hear about the elections because obviously I'm not anybody. I take notice of a lot of different countries. I don't just look at
because
American US politics.
well, I mean, I guess Canada is a part of America, so yeah. But I did Canada first because
Okay, as
there's
a continent.
Because they're closer to you. Is that-
well because I mean, if I had to choose between the French and the Canadians, the Canadian politics is coming first. Okay, I'm sorry, but
Well, shouldn't we get it underway? It looks like we're already live, aren't we?
yeah, we're already live. I checked the audio and everything.
Hello, folks. Well, get into it, Roger.
Let me do
Take us away.
the countdown and stuff. Do you want to open it up?
Nah, you go for it.
Okay, how about you, Mark? You want to do it?
Yeah, you know my feelings on opening statements.
Okay. So I'll do the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Untethered. Today, we are switching the talking points again, and we went from current events last week into politics this week. And today, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to be bringing up. Um, you seen the look on Mark's face. He's pretty enthused about this one because we are breaking it down. This is where I think he's going to start getting dirty. He's going to become a dirty, rotten British dude and like go all freaking nuts. I thought last night his head was going to explode, but I think this is going to really send him over the top.
I think you just attempted to drive me insane.
Roger tends to avoid politics because he knows it'll start a crap storm between us.
Yeah, well, see, for me personally, what it is like Untethered is something that I've been trying to avoid for years. I was into this kind of politics back in the day when I first started the Praetorian, and the amount of freaking garbage politics is just overwhelming. You know what I'm saying? And it got to the point where it was disgusting, to be honest with you. Then me and Mark finally decided to do Roger's Real Time Talk Show, and that all pertains to like political history and the way politics worked throughout certain time periods. So I was okay with that, and then freaking the more I started doing that, the more I noticed Mark has an itchy finger to talk about a lot of this stuff. He has a love for these topics, dude.
Fun enough, when I started my Minds account back in 2016, for the first year, let's say the first 8 months, I was just talking about UK politics. Then I decided to. Then I realised that everybody was talking about politics, not US, UK, but mainly US politics. So I decided to actually delete all the content on my channel and start talking about more technical issues, more IT related issues. So yeah, and some of my real world friends would call me very sort of politically, I wouldn't say active, but politically opinionated.
Yeah, I noticed that. Another person who I noticed is very politically opinionated, but he doesn't try to let everybody onto it, is Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot comes from Australia, and this is how opinionated Mr. Robot is. Before I started to stream, Mr. Robot wrote talking points up that he wanted me to add in for today, and not once did he mention anything about the Australian elections that are taking place today.
Yeah.
Today.
It's funny. I've got a love-hate relationship with politics. It's like I feel like I need to do it for the good of my own understanding and take an interest in what's going to happen next. But at the same time, I feel like it's just watching a slow motion train wreck half the time. So
Yeah.
Exactly. We'll get into that.
Now, what we've all three said right there will let everybody know that this is what you're going to expect for the remainder of the episode, because even though we're doing politics and everything, we have a love-hate relationship, like Mr. Robot said. So you're not going to hear a lot of propaganda that's being brought in about making America great again. Well, you might hear that from Mark Edworthy because he loves American politics. He loves it.
If you say so. Yay, America. Hey, yay, US. Yeah.
But anyhow, with that being said, we need to actually get into the first topic. Now, the first area that I want to start out with is the tariffs. Now, everybody knows that we're in the middle of what they what they like to call the tariff wars.
Speaking of making America great again,
Yeah. Now, the best way that I found to get into that, which would relate to like the tariffs on an international level, is to kind of talk about a lot of these meetings that Trump has been having with um, foreign diplomats.
Well, before you do that, can you just, for people who aren't familiar, tell them a little bit about what a tariff is and how they have been historically used?
Well, last year we were discussing in Roger's Real Time Talk Show, and that
Ah,
it was talking about England when they first started putting in their socialist policies. The conservatives were in power with the Tories, and they believed in using tariffs as a form of trade. Now, the socialist movement actually was against tariffs because they believed that when you set tariffs down uh, on products that are coming into your country, it causes, instead of inflation, deflation. And deflation, in turn, is, according to the traditional beliefs behind it, is supposed to cause unemployment, and it's supposed to cause the price of products going up that are being brought into the country. So,
but at
um,
the same time, if it doesn't happen, you get to like what the West is now, is where the currency is so strong that you're not competitive on the international market, and therefore no one's buying your stuff internationally, and so that causes unemployment as well because now you don't need to produce as much stuff because people aren't like buying as much stuff. So
and the big thing about that is like you'll hear a lot of people making this big push where it causes unemployment and a drop in hours and stuff of that nature. Me personally, I don't believe in the 40-hour work week. I think that was probably the worst mistake that freaking anybody ever came up with. And
uh,
I say that for myself too, because like for me personally, like sitting here doing this stuff, if this was a job, I would be doing way more than 40 hours a week. Okay.
It is worth noting that the US, on sort of medium average, full-time workers are working more hours than any other country in the world.
I
Um,
I believe
and
that the
totally
40-hour
followed by
work week thing,
the UK.
the 40-hour work week thing was decided upon by the ruling class in the 1950s to keep us busy so that we don't ever basically, become a competition for them. So the idea was
I
to make us work harder, tax us more, and give us less. And that way it sort of always keeps
I
us in
think
this loop.
the 40-hour, or 38-hour in the UK working week is actually comes out of World War Two. Comes out of batteries mentality during World War Two.
Yeah. I'm
Now,
just, yeah.
now
Um,
with
Continue.
Leon Blum or Bloom is actually the guy who came up with it. He came up with it in France just before World War II. He was the one that wanted to implement a crap load of socialist policies in France. Um,
Mm.
the the Popular Front government is who voted in the 40-hour work week. They were led by Bloom. And
Socialist or communist?
it was socialist. You see,
Interesting.
you have the first international and the second international. The communism didn't come into being until the third international, and they
Yeah, yeah. It was
so
a bit later.
so
Mm.
you had all of that going with that. But for for uh, for me, I'm starting to see that even getting a little bit crazy because now, like, a lot of the socialist countries, like over in England and Australia, you guys are wanting to lower it down even lower to like 30-hour weeks and 20-hour weeks.
I don't understand how you think we're socialists.
Well,
I wish we.
your policies are based off of English government.
Yeah,
Not everything. We're just making such a broad statement there.
the thing is,
Not,
the word socialism has been sort of corrupted, in my opinion. It doesn't mean like it isn't used now the way it was originally intentioned to be used. Um, and you know, a lot of people throw the word socialist around nowadays, and it's sort of meant to be a negative thing. When in the past it was about cooperative enterprise and creating prosperity for everyone. Um,
Where did you hear this shit?
well,
well,
that's
that's
just how
true.
I
I
understood
mean,
it.
look at the fundamental principles of what you would call our socialist healthcare system. Well, it is a socialist healthcare. The
Yeah.
principle of it is a good idea, rather than having the US sort of free market ideology, which, as we've seen in the US, has caused healthcare costs to rise
It
dramatically.
gives access of healthcare to people who can't always afford it by harnessing the power of collective investment. And like, whereas in the US, you have the privatized system, which causes a whole bunch of people to get bankrupted when they get sick. You know, so there's
Well,
there's a lot to be said for it, I
well,
think.
when you guys talk about this, though, I mean, you're talking about freaking a government uh, regulated healthcare system. I mean, if you're gonna make it free, why don't you just make it to where anybody
It's
can
not
go?
free. I have to
Hold up, now,
stop
hold
you
up.
on that one. It's not free. It's free at the point
You
of
guys want
access.
your
It's still being
utopian?
paid by taxation.
You guys still
Therefore,
want
it's
your
not free.
utopian future? Let me finish. Okay, you want that utopian uh, future to come to everybody. Okay, so let's do it like this. Let's say that no matter who you are, when you need help at the hospital, you go into the hospital without any kind of medical card or any kind of thing that says that you are allowed to have universal health care, and they just treat you, and there's no bill. You walk away, and you never have to see a bill come to your freaking mailbox.
True. We're still paying in taxes. But
No,
this is but there's a
do
wider
that. You do that
issue
because
there in relation to sort of foreign sort of or let's say the tourist healthcare sort of thing, where we get people from all over the world just coming to this country to enjoy our healthcare and then disappearing. So
Well, that
for
doesn't
them,
make
it
sense.
would be
Yeah.
free.
what's wrong with
Yeah.
that?
Well, it gets
Well,
exploited
we,
and it
the
costs a lot of money.
British
So.
taxpayers, are paying for it.
You guys want that though. You want that universal health care. I mean,
Well,
it's
not universal for the country. It's like a type of
oh,
it's for the nation, right?
so now
It's to make life cheaper for the people living there, so that
See,
the essentials are taken care of, and people don't have to worry about survival.
so
That's the idea of it, in my opinion.
so now it's only for those certain people and not for everybody.
Well, look what happened to your country when you
well,
just started letting illegals in, and now it's a bit of an issue, right? Like they started putting them up in
why,
hotels, and
It's not
why,
really
as
an
a
issue.
taxpayer, should I be paying for your health care as a US citizen that is entering this country? Well, and you're not contributing to that health care through taxation.
Well, I am. I'm showing up because I'm sick and I need help. That's how I'm
I don't
contributing.
know if that's contributing. But
Yeah, I mean,
Well, you still pay VAT, but still on goods. But
I'm the
yeah,
sick dude.
generally,
I'm the sick dude. Out of the kindness of your heart, you should say, man, the sick people need to be freaking taken care of.
And that's what we've got.
They do,
That's
but
the
in their own
issue.
country.
Yeah, we do, and that's the issue that we've got with the illegal immigration at this present moment.
No, but, like that makes sense to me. Like it's about owning the means of production, owning the essentials to survive, and like cooperatively, and then making it cheaper for your own people. You know, tourists can still get charged for sure,
It
and that
sounds like
creates prosperity inside the country.
now. See what you guys are talking about is kind of going into the whole national socialist point of
But
view.
no. So
Again, be very careful about how you use
what has
that.
happened now since the communist days is the word socialism has become a like sort of bastardized, where it really means globalism. When people say socialism now, it really refers to globalism, which is
Uh,
uh,
national
like basically
socialism.
centralized power. Uh, still privatizing
National
everything to
socialism is
large
about
corporations. Um,
there's a difference between communism and national socialism.
well,
Communism is
yeah,
about global power, and national socialism is about
he's
localized.
just trying to call us Nazis. That's why.
Yeah.
American
I would
Jack.
say be very careful about that
No,
because
I'm not.
that's been co-opted.
I would
That
never
has
call you
become
two Nazis ever, dude.
I thought you
No,
said there wasn't going to be propaganda here, Roger.
no.
no.
I'm bringing good topics up here. Like, you know what I mean? It's
No,
like
it's a good point. Like the word
Anyway, I
Nazi
think
was never actually. It was always like a slur word. It wasn't a real word the Germans used. They called it the National Socialist Party, and they created a lot of prosperity for their own people actually with their policies after the war. And they took back control of the printing of their own money. Kicked out the bankers.
depends on which side of the
And
border
they
you're looking at, east or
yeah.
west. Yeah.
Well,
well, they just massively improved their living standards within a few years, which is pretty amazing at that time.
okay. So now that we've covered that, you guys want to talk about the tariffs?
Yeah, let's
I
go
was
into it.
going to say yeah.
Okay. Now, Trump ended up having talks with in Japan. He there's an article out that said that Trump hails big progress in Japan tariff talks. Um, Now, what happened was Trump, in summary, Japan, one of the first countries to start tariff negotiations, um, was involved in it, and then more than 75 other countries uh, who are seeking deals with Washington says a couple things. Now, the one thing about all that was is exchange rates weren't part of the talks. Tokyo's negotiators ended up saying that as well. So what happened was is on April the 16th, it was said that Donald Trump touted big progress in tariff talks with Japan on Wednesday. In one of the first rounds of face-to-face negotiations since his barrage of duties on global imports uh, rolled markets and stoked recession fears. Now, Japan had not expected the president to get involved in Wednesday's talks, viewing them as a preliminary fact finding mission, a sign that Trump wants to keep tight control over negotiations with dozens of countries expected over coming days and weeks. Um, Now, Tokyo had also been hoping to limit the scope of the talks to trade and investment matters. But announcing his involvement early Wednesday, Trump said thorny issues, uh, including the amount Japan pays towards hosting U.S. troops, were among discussion topics. Now, a great honor to have met with the Japanese delegations on trade. Big progress, Trump said in a social media message that contained no details on the discussion. Opposite Trump was Ryosei Akazawa, a close confidant of Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who serves as the relatively junior cabinet position of economic revitalization minister. Speaking to reporters after the talks, Akazawa gave a few details, but said the parties had agreed to hold a second meeting later this month, and that Trump had said getting a deal with Japan was a top priority. Exchange rates, which the Trump administration has said Japan and others manipulate to get a trade advantage, were not part of the talks. The dollar strengthened against the yen after his remarks on Forex, up to 0.5% on the day. Tokyo denies it manipulates its yen currency lower to get makes it export cheaper. That's a typo. Akazawa held a 50-minute meeting with Trump at the White House before another session with his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Trade Representative Jameson Greer. That stretched to almost an hour and a half, according to Japanese readouts of the talks. Now, for me, I want to talk about that with Japan and Japan playing with the stock market and everything. You know what I mean? Because that actually is something that a lot of people here in the United States does talk about. You know, they've been notorious for doing that for a long time, and they're probably one of our strongest allies in the Pacific.
It's worth noting that Japan has been in using quantitative easing measures for what must be 30, 35, maybe even 40 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think 40 years.
What is quantitative easing again?
Printing money, in effect. Just printing money based upon no sort of material worth of that money, or physical material worth. So it's not backed by gold or anything.
So after this happened, after this talks, the yen got a bit stronger, but now it's come back down.
Mm-hmm. Now, Japan's prime minister, who has previously said he won't rush to reach a deal and does not plan to make big concessions, sounded a more cautious tone speaking to reporters later in Tokyo. Of course, the negotiations will not be easy going forward, but President Trump has stated that he wants to give top priority to the talks with Japan, Ishiba said. Now, after that, we go into Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and I don't know. Do you guys have anything to say about Japan and the negotiations going on there?
Not specifically, but I'll let you read your next 2 points because I've got a few views on the tariff situation as a whole.
Okay, now Giorgia Meloni heads to the White House on Thursday, according to this. And this has already happened, to discuss tariffs imposed on the European Union with Trump, while Bessent has invited South Korea's finance minister to Washington for talks for the following week. Now, I do have links to what had actually taken place there with the Italian Prime Minister, but that's on a different article, and I'm going to go ahead and go to that one instead of this one, because the stuff that I wanted to talk about with Japan was there. Now, on BBC, which I do not support, just so everybody knows, they did have an article. The last article I read came off of Reuters, and BBC is the next one. But they went into saying, for the moment, from the moment she arrived at the White House, Georgia Meloni was warmly welcomed. Trump called her a great prime minister and said she had taken Europe by storm. Now, Meloni's visit to Washington today has been eagerly awaited after months of a trade standoff between the U.S. and the European Union. Meloni was seen as a Trump whisperer who Brussels hoped could help ease tensions. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump was full of praise for his Italian counterpart, and Meloni seemed to say all the right things, as our Europe reporter Laura Gozzi notes. There was no announcement.
Sorry, I was just going to say, of course, they're going to have to say the right thing, stay on camera. A lot of this is as much PR as it is actual internal communications between the two parties. So, yeah, you've got to smile and shake the other person's hand while you're in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of it is theatrical.
It says here that
the points that people don't understand, that when these politicians appear in front of the cameras, a lot of what they're doing is a much more of a sort of play, much more theatrical.
100%. That's why you always got to check out a politician's background. That's how you learn more about them, you know. When I first read about her, what stood out is that she was part of the European Conservatives and Reformist Party. I'm like, yeah, that sounds kind of good. But then here it says in 1992, she joined the Youth Front, which was a wing of the Italian socialist movement. So I'm like, oh, okay. A neo-fascist political party founded in 1946 by followers of Italian fascism. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So keep an eye on her. You know, don't blink.
So now, what happened is it says there was no announcement of a trade deal, but both leaders sounded optimistic. Trump also accepted Melani's invitation to Rome, though we don't know when it will happen. Okay, so basically that was just all staged, like you guys said, because there was actually no trade negotiations taken on. It was just camera, you know, for people to
I remember a lot of this is not the leaders' meeting, it's done behind doors with diplomats and
That's right.
ministers.
It's all for show, basically, you know, and you got that beautiful Italian chick.
Well, also not all of it is made public, you know. So,
right. Well, I mean,
some of it.
take a look at Trump's background. Okay, look at all the things that all the people that were involved. All right, there's always been some blonde freaking hot chick in the background somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
He's got this hot blonde Italian chick who's in power.
Remember, Trump, first and foremost, is a business person. He's a marketer. Right. He knows how to market
things. You know,
I'm not saying that he's always been successful, but he knows the principles of marketing.
Mm-hmm. Now, Melania is now heading back to Italy to talk with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance tomorrow. They could continue the discussions on tariff defense spending and perhaps ways to make the West great again. Which that's something that does need to be done. Like we need to make Europe and England and Australia great again, and maybe we could even get New Zealand in on the action too, make them great again, and Canada 51st state all the way, dude.
Well, I think we should
Maybe.
define what that means. Because, like, right now, the way I see it is the entire West has been basically taken over by, like, globalist forces, which are sort of the um, a new type of monarchy of the world, which are the like sort of founded by the international bankers, but then they've formed these multinational organizations like the United Nations and stuff like this, the WEF, and World Economic Forum. And they have a lot of think tanks around them, and it's all of these like multi-billionaire people that are basically dictating the policies of all the Western nations, and they do it mainly through bribery and blackmail and like various ways like that.
I'm going to come back to
the only way to get out of that is to stop electing people that support them, you know. And so people need to like become more aware of this fact, so that we just don't elect these people.
Yeah, I am going to come back to this point a bit later because there's another point, another topic that is much more relevant to this. But
We'll
this is down to this can be argued that it's down to things like the sort of Blairist idea of NGOs and Kangos.
Mm-hmm. And I'm big on talking about NGOs too, because I don't think of them as a good thing. And I think a lot of people, even here in the United States, being as great as what we are.
I don't know if they were ever a good thing. I like the idea behind it, but they've definitely become a sort of tool for the rich to write off taxes and instill policies that they want. You know,
It'll
definitely become corrupted.
Instill policies that are constitutionally illegal is the key thing. Like like our three countries, even though you don't agree with your constitution, it is a constitution. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's the foundation stone of any country, really.
Okay, and whenever freaking they create these NGOs, it's usually a way of working around your constitutional laws. That's usually why they create these non-governmental organizations. So that is a good topic, and we can bring that back up again because right now we need to talk about Trump's cool predictions on his trade deal with China. He vows 100% chance of EU agreement. Okay. Now this
is see what's going on in China right now. There's like massive strikes and stuff going on because of Trump's tariffs. Like these factories are having to shut down. They can't pay their people. It's going down. It's going down over there. China can't hold out much longer, in my opinion.
Now, USA Today says that President Donald Trump says his administration is in trade talks with Beijing, and he is confident they can reach an agreement as soon as next month. Okay, and this article was written, let me check the date on here, April the 17th, 2025.
So a couple of days ago, or last week before last.
Now, Trump says he expects to reach a trade agreement with China and the European Union soon, with the latter one coming before the end of a 90-day pause on tit-for-tat tariffs between the trading partners. There will be a trade deal, 100%, Trump said, of a deal with the EU ahead of an April 17 luncheon at the White House with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Now, just so you guys know, because I know you're foreigners, but a luncheon is lunch. That's what.
We all know what lunch is. Or as the Northern Brits call it, dinner. Yeah. People from the North are a bit weird. Love you all. What was I going to say? Can the Italian Prime Minister speak on behalf of the entire EU?
Well, it goes
Not
back to what I just told you. I just told you, hot blonde chick from Italy, dude. What the heck?
Yeah, but still, if the Italian Prime Minister is representing Italy and not the European Union?
If it could be, it really could be. To be honest, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Analysts at the US-based investment bank Goldman Sachs estimated that at least 16 million jobs across industries in China are at risk due to the US tariffs of 145% on Chinese imports. That's crazy high.
I was going to raise this point.
And this is all because Xi Jinping escalated the tariffs.
These tariffs have been a bit of a tit-for-tat sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, all he had to do was drop his tariffs, and it would have been all good. But he got offended, and he just started this tariff war.
Actually, I don't blame Trump for doing what he's done with China, but it's worth remembering that he just increased the tariffs to a level where they were matching the import tariffs from those countries in the first place.
Yes, which is fair.
Yeah.
And but the problem was Xi Jinping is like, no, I'm going to raise it some more. And then Trump's like, well, I'll raise it as well.
Yeah, but equally, on an equal...
If you wanted to make Trump look bad, just like drop your tariffs to zero. And if Trump doesn't do that, he'd look bad. And if, you know...
And that raises the next point. By doing this, he can now negotiate with these countries as he's doing, and then it's a sort of new world. We can renegotiate tariffs and
like a lot of people are saying Trump is doing this on purpose, being so chaotic with the tariffs so that it creates uncertainty for foreign companies, and that forces them to bring their factories into America.
Yeah,
which has happened.
I was going to raise this point as well. I read a couple of days ago that both Nvidia Corporation and Apple Inc. is now are now creating factories in Michigan. Michigan. Ideally, this allows the US to bring back jobs into the US and aids in employment and therefore economics of the US.
Mm-hmm. Now, Trump goes on to say that the Trump administration actually goes on to say that more than 75 nations have sought to make new trade agreements with the U.S. since the president announced his reciprocal tariff plan in early April. At least 15 has submitted proposals, the White House has said. A Japanese trade delegation met with Trump and members of his administration on April 16th. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said South Korea would also be visiting next week and that talks with India are also moving fast. And I also want to point out before I move on from this that I found out today by checking it out that economists are completely freaking blown out of the water because of how the economy and the freaking trade or the markets are actually recovering so good today because after these trades, like they're actually going back up.
Yeah, I sort of predicted that anyway. Well, markets come and go up and down all the time, so really,
Yeah, but it's been going up
mean,
and up lately. Like,
I mean,
to be fair, for a while now. It's done well this year, though.
Peter Schiff and even Kaiser, Max Kaiser, all the other economists, mainstream economists that I see are, well, questionable, that's to say.
Well,
Okay, so
the thing you guys have to understand is like it's like Trump said, nobody can really compete with the United States. Okay, the reason why it's so hard for Mark to comprehend the fact that everybody makes it out like America's so great and we're like number one is the reason why he has a hard time with it is because the fact is we are the greatest country on the face of the planet. Okay,
Shall I talk about
all eyes,
things like foreign policy?
You haven't even been around the planet once, Roger. How would you know?
all eyes are
and you're saying it's great in what areas?
all areas. Like
All areas. Let's talk about.
They're really great at bragging. Really great at bragging.
Everybody's
and without causing any offence there, this is another thing that the US is well known for, historically well known for. They're sort of self satisfaction. Dare I say, even somewhat arrogant attitude.
Oh yeah, well known for it. No offense.
Well, I mean, I'm just stating the facts, okay? Like everybody,
that's according to you.
Everybody is watching us. Like
That's because you own most of the TV networks.
What are you talking about? That's my whole point right there. We are the greatest nation on the planet. Okay,
let's talk about your things like food policy and health policies and stuff. Yeah,
let's. And like,
I mean, there's
that's just modern day slavery, just like the slavery that the country was founded on. Like,
honestly,
what's so great about that?
Let's be serious, okay? There's more child trafficking going on in Romania and freaking Asia. Asia is horrible, dude. They freaking trade children.
Asia isn't a single country.
Contract.
Asia
I mean, this shit happens all the time, and it's happened since the beginning of time. People in that region
I'm trying to justify it.
No, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, let's talk about this shit. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, we need to talk about trafficking taking place all in.
Well, they reckon that there's 300,000 kids missing on the books, but some estimate it could be up to 1 million.
Let's talk about women being abducted from their homes in Romania and Hungary and freaking over in freaking Tokyo and freaking not Tokyo but freaking China or freaking down in Korea or how many women are freaking abducted and sold into the slave market?
I've not seen any numbers. If you've got some numbers there,
I'll bring it up.
This stuff has been going on forever.
Be careful on your sources because I can see this is going to be somewhat questionable. Some sources will be somewhat questionable.
I mean, how many people freaking have been sold on the freaking slave market in those regions?
Afghanistan is up there apparently.
The Middle East is. Yeah, that's a long historical.
Well, everywhere where there's wars, it definitely goes bad.
Look at Colombia. Look at that.
Yeah, but of course, like they're not going to put the USA on here because they haven't admitted it.
Well, I mean, you gotta have statistics, man. Come on. I mean, the only reason why slave trafficking is really an issue and being brought up here in the United States is because of politics. They want to try to clump prostitution in with slave trade. Okay.
Also, you've got to remember that these are estimated numbers because you can't. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, to actually get actual numbers.
Well, that's right, because this stuff is swept
Just
under the
because
rug.
of nature, yeah.
You get Cuba 5.5.
Well, that's lower than the US. United States is 6.
Mm-hmm.
Up.
Chile 6 is Egypt. Look at
Are we talking about percentage?
Wow, France is above freaking England or the United States.
Okay, we're talking about millions.
No, it's the same.
Sorry.
6.
Okay, we're talking about some arbitrary score. We aren't talking about things like percentage per capita.
Thailand is up to 7.
Worst countries in. Well, you can't trust USA News. That's going to be biased.
I mean, I'm not the one that chose freaking BBC or any of those. You know what I'm saying?
World Population Review. That sounds kind of neutral. United States highest. For what?
Yeah. United States.
Depending on who you look at, you can get wildly different
Peru.
numbers from what I suspect.
Well, that's 2023, 2025. Child trafficking by country. United States is the highest right now.
Yeah, according to freaking. Yeah, and you just went through that chart that said it wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Well, that was
again, you can have
2023.
wild different numbers even on you looking at.
Before Biden got in, USA wasn't even on the list, but now it's the highest.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is it's the regimes that take power. When you get a regime like Trump's, they're really fanatical religious factions. So they really want to push this pedophile crap. Like that's why you'll hear so much about it. No, it's constitutionally illegal for freaking Congress to do these kind of things on their own. So what they do is they create this non-governmental organization to do it in their place and give them the same freaking plenary powers that they have.
Yeah, but these NGOs cannot pardon people.
No, they can't. They can freaking regulate the money. They can regulate
No, just come back to your previous point.
It's Congress's job to do that. It's not freaking the Federal Reserve, but they can get away with it. They can get away with a lot more stuff if they turn around and they set down these non-governmental organizations like the Federal Reserve and the freaking IRS, which is also a non-governmental organization, and have them.
But they have, but there's governmental oversight on these organisations.
Yeah, that's funny. Let's think of another joke. You know what I mean? That we can come up with.
In theory.
Wait, did you guys see this one?
Be careful! Don't play too much of that on YouTube.
Yeah, well, we're not on YouTube. This is on Rumble. It's our first Rumble premium stream, so go ahead.
Oh wait.
Hold on a minute.
Elon Musk going, and the Fed.
How is that relevant?
Well, Roger was talking about the Fed.
Yeah, the Fed.
Okay.
Now this is one reason why I'm okay with Doge. I might have my issues about other issues, but I really am okay with the Fed is because they're going after these non-governmental organizations that we were just talking about. They've
saved you $1,000 so far, Roger.
Yep.
Per person. That's crazy.
Yep. And
$160.
I said save you $1,000. Have you seen that in your day-to-day living?
Wow. If Roger doesn't want that $1,000, I'll take it.
Well, let me put it to you this way. a lot of this stuff is freaking hypothetical because it's not going to be seen until the end of the year. First of all, it's going to be some. It's going to be through tax returns and things of that nature, if anything. You know what I mean?
Isn't
Try,
your tax year April from April?
actually, yeah, you're
Like
right.
the UK,
It,
like the UK. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
tax
April.
returns is this month, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep. So that
last month, no. Yeah.
well, yeah, yeah, you're right. It's May now. Shit, I missed my tax returns. Well, the thing is it's like, well, actually, that might not take place until the following year, anyhow, because of all this stuff has basically been new. You know what I mean? It's going to
So
have,
from April this year to April next year,
yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
But and you have 2 years to file your taxes too. So yeah, I think some people can get away with 3 years. I'm not quite sure, but
I'm not sure about the rules, US rules.
but the whole thing with that now comes to our next one. Now claims are being made that 5 million would lose coverage with national Medicaid work requirements. An analysis from Extelligence Healthcare Payers from Tech Target, which is all medical. They they have an article saying that national Medicaid work requirements would significantly reduce enrollment, affecting approximately 5 million beneficiaries, according to a new analysis. And that analysis is from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. How many expansion adults could lose medical under federal work requirements? And I didn't have a chance to go over what an expansion adult was, but I can go over that here in a little bit. That word seems to pop up over and over again. But it says more than 5 million adults could lose Medicaid coverage in 2026 if Congress enacts a work requirement in states that expand their Medicaid programs. Um, the issue is that researchers analyze policy proposals that would withhold federal fundings for people enrolled in Medicaid expansion ages 19 to 55 who do not report working for at least 80 hours per month. Um, Now, their key findings is that between 4.6 and 5.2 million adults living in states that expanded Medicaid would that that expanded Medicaid would lose Medicaid coverage next year under work requirements. More than 9 in 10 adults with Medicaid expansion coverage already work, are looking for a job, attending school, are caring for family members, are in fair or poor health, or reported having a disability. If work requirements are not explicitly limited to the Medicaid expansion population, researchers say more than 30 million adults ages 19 to 55 could be subject to them, and coverage losses would be substantially higher. Um, Now, researchers conclude that most people who would lose coverage under a Medicare work requirement would do so because of difficulty filling out paperwork, not because they can work and choose not to do so. Um, Now that right there
Also,
is
it's not only just the work or wanting to, or not choosing to work. It's also, I can see it's going to majorly affect this service sector. I mean, think of all those waitress and waiters that are getting paid very poor. Think of all those burger flippers in McDonald's. That's an example.
Yeah, I mean, well, what is a expansion adult though? You know,
Expansion. Okay.
now, what I got from it now is an expansion read adult refers to an individual age 19 or older and under 65 who is eligible for Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act. That would be the Obamacare.
Mm,
This expansion allows states to cover low income adults with
mm.
incomes up to 138% of the federal poverty level who are previously ineligible for Medicaid. Um, so that's what an expansion adult is. Um, now,
What is the US poverty level?
oh God, to
Yeah,
be honest, I couldn't tell you
What was the question?
what is the poverty level for the United States. Now, for everything has changed so much with the money shifting prices so high.
yeah. No,
I,
just not good.
it was like I was talking about the
According to
And you
this,
have 10 million new illegals on the street.
anybody that is that has a income, annual income of 15,000 or or less.
okay, so yeah,
Actually, it does. That's a rough thing because Alaska, I can see figures for each individual state.
yeah, because I
It does change, but yeah, an average median.
so they want to change everything else but leave the poverty level at the same level. So it was like 15,000. I think it was at one time 1,000 maybe, or not 15,000, but
For a
10.
family of four, the poverty level is on a rough federal sort of generalisation is 32,150
Yeah, and
per annum.
I remember like 60,000 was at one time freaking an average wage. So that's most likely changed over time. So
So what's the poverty rate?
As a general average for an individual on the federal basis, 15,650 US dollars per annum.
The last time it was done was in 2023, which was then 12.9%. Some places say 11%.
Again, on a federal average.
Yeah. I'd say it's probably a bit higher now.
that's the thing. It's not like they've changed everything else, but they haven't changed the poverty level. You know what I mean? Like because the value of the dollar is definitely a lot freaking higher now, which
It's
means
higher here, apparently. 13.6%.
But yeah, this is done due again to so-called trade wars, so tariff wars. So again,
In the UK, it's
still,
22%. 1 in 5 people in
again.
the UK are in poverty, apparently.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, you were
The
talking.
great first world nations.
so. Let me see here. First. I need to back out of here. Now, do you guys have anything to say else on that one?
On Doge and
No,
in general?
on the expansion adults and freaking Medicaid being lost to these people.
Again, I can
Well,
see
I
it's
just
going
remember
to.
Trump said that the whole Doge thing wouldn't impact people's Medicaid payments.
You know?
Did that turn out to be
Yeah,
not
but
true?
this is the problem with Trump, isn't it? He says a lot of things and doesn't always have. Yeah, much like
From what I
he's
understood is
in
they
this.
basically cut down on some of the services of like processing. Oh no, they switched from paper to digital or something like that. So there was like an interruption for either online or digital, and people had to basically come in to prove who they were because there was a lot of fraud in the system. So a lot of old people had to manually go in and check in, like show their ID again and everything, which I think is fair enough because
Well,
there's no other way to deal with a problem like that. You can't trust people online to be.
Obviously, that's
honest.
also has a knock-on costs because you're going to have to employ more civil servants to be able to
Which
assess
I'm not
these
sure
people.
they did. I'm not sure they did or not.
And see, that's the final that's the final outcome of what they're trying to do is to reduce bureaucracy and make it to where it's smaller government. That's what the whole premise behind
The thing is, they should have dealt with the fraud first and then reduced it because right now they're going to have just a big backlog of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Maybe you can pull a miracle out.
they're getting those lawsuits in the court systems, and things are going the way freaking democracy or however you want to determine it is supposed to work. Constitutional government, the right to be sued and to sue and be sued. So this is freaking the United States in action. You know what I mean? Freaking Trump came in, he did what he did, and now these people are suing.
Are these civil cases? Are these civil cases or?
It's all.
Because you said to be sued.
The right to be sued.
I thought it would be more criminal related. Fraud is not a criminal action.
No, all of it is constitutional law. You have the right.
Yeah, so it's a criminal. So it's not sued. It's custodial sentencing.
That's tough. Whenever they're making lawsuits against the president and the executive branch, they have to take their lawsuits to the government, and then the government has to approve it and say that they have valid grounds to sue the government. After that, it becomes a civil suit between the individual and the government or whatever branch.
Okay. Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah. No.
All I know is they are coming hard for Trump right now because he is cutting off a lot of corrupt people's money, and that's why him and Musk are getting such bad press right now. Is because all these people were pocketing, billions of dollars, and now they're not, and they're pissed off about it, and they're trying to get back at him.
For the purpose of legality, I will state alleged.
Alleged.
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Irrelevant, but do you want to be sued?
Well, nobody wants to
shit. I say what I want.
It's nobody wants.
Okay, I knew some of the consequences.
I've got nothing for anyone to take, so I can say whatever I want, Mark.
It's a constitutional law here in the United States that allows you to be sued. You know what I'm saying? And it's also to sue people. You have that constitutional law. So if you have anything that you're disagreeing with when it comes to the government or anything, you can sue it.
Doesn't there have to be damages for that to be the case?
Well, I mean,
it depends what you mean by damages.
Which part of the
depends
Constitution
on the specific law.
You
specific reason
I thought it was like a means to remedy, like if you had damage done to your property or something like that.
If you have any kind of damage that has to do with you personally, it could be damage to your property. It could be freaking something that the government's doing. Yeah, your reputation. If somebody is doing something in the government that's hurting you, you see.
Yeah, but getting a payout of the government isn't really damages, is it?
And it's not a payout by the government, obviously. It's paid by the taxpayer. It's
but
by the
they're dishing it out. What I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah.
it's really hard for you guys over in freaking your foreign countries to understand, But this is freedom. This is how we do things in the United States.
Very
When
inefficient. Mm.
well, it's actually
We have similar sort of concepts when it comes to civil law in the UK and Australia.
well, I mean,
Well, I don't recommend trying to sue the government. A friend of mine tried to do that, and they labeled them as a terrorist, and now she can't do a lot of things because of that.
welcome to the
Okay, I
party.
would have to know the exact details of that one.
Welcome to the party, dude. If you do something to the government and they freaking call you a terrorist, then you're probably doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not going to make your life any easier, that's for sure.
I know that, but you just got to keep your head up and freaking wish for the best, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're a terrorist, then you could be looking at criminal prosecution anyway. You could be
There's
looking to
better
still
ways
do
to fight than
something
head
anyway.
on.
Now, Musk is supposed to be teaming up with PayPal co-founder to help build Trump's defense shield. Have you guys heard about that?
I have not.
SpaceX.
That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Mhm.
It
SpaceX
used
to
to be
partner,
Musk's company, wasn't it?
yep. SpaceX to partner with Peter Thiel's data company on proposals for U.S. Golden Dome.
Oh,
So,
Peter
so they
Thiel.
look.
Oh my God. Yeah,
What is
right.
what is the Golden
I did
Dome?
hear about the
What
space shield.
exactly?
Huh?
What is
I'm worried about
the
this Peter
Dome?
Thiel guy. He's a creepy one. I don't trust him.
Okay, so
Again, you have to yeah, go into further detail about
Elaborate.
what the actual yeah.
Well, just the way he's invested in the past, really. Like
Oh,
he was an early
sorry,
investor in
I'm not talking
Facebook.
about this individual. Sorry, you misunderstand me. I wasn't talking about the individual. The individual is irrelevant. What is defense shield?
Ah, defense.
What,
Is it the space shield thing, or is
yeah,
it the missile defense? Yeah, yeah. So it's using satellites to be an early detection system for intercontinental missiles, and being able to shoot them down before they get to their targets.
so I was going to say why is it why are the private sector because private sector industries are interested in this because there's a Department of Defense issue, isn't it? But saying that there's a lot of lucrative money to be made in contracts
Oh
supplying.
yeah,
Yeah.
Peter Thiel
So
would
yeah.
be killing it. Yeah, and
it's
SpaceX too. Yeah, they'd be making a lot of money. But at the same time, it's the biggest vulnerability that the US has right now is these supersonic missiles that Russia and everyone has now. They can basically fire a nuke and it'll be hitting its target in 10 minutes. And you can't shoot them down. There's no countermeasures to them at the moment.
Reagan's Star Wars program. We still got the US still got ICBMs.
Oh yeah, no doubt there's nukes in space already. I know the US
No
has
doubt.
these. They have these decapitation weapons in space that are they call them meteor guns, and basically it's like a projectile that gets launched from space and it hits terminal velocity and basically can go into a mountain and destroy like bunkers.
And it doesn't have to even be from space. There's plenty of US military bases on US ground that have got missile silos.
well,
Yeah, but
I've done some research into this too, and it's actually a combination between the United States and England. They both came up with a satellite, or it's a ground to satellite to freaking to target projectiles missile system, where freaking they use satellite information to locate the target, and all they have to
Mhm.
do is launch the missile, and it freaking hits it by satellite. They've had it out now for at least 10.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the name. There's an acronym. There's an acronym or abbreviation acronym for
It
the
really
UK.
bolstered the British military capabilities. Like they really got a lot of good credit out of that because of how much of a military force they are in the world of weapons exchange and trade. Like they've actually got a lot of credit for it. Um, it's just like you remember the drone thing we were talking about. I find it coincidental that you guys are freaking doing experiments with radiation, or not radiation, but yeah, I guess it would.
Soundwave.
Yeah,
Soundwave. Yeah.
yeah, microwaves, and
Yeah.
with
Doing.
drones. And then we mysteriously had our drone incident over here. And the one thing that sticks out to me is when we were having that show with Nancy, she was talking about freaking that fuel. What was it again? Uh, it was not bleach.
Okay.
No, it was greens. It was green. Well, not bleach, but green pneumonia or something like that. Um,
Okay.
and they're using it now, so because it was supposed to be freaking really low in heat, you know what I mean, and with heat and everything, and it's a good fuel source. They're using it now in semis and stuff of that nature. But that was what really stuck out to me. So I can see that there's a lot of new technology that's being prepared, and I think
Did, did you see that video of Trump talking about his secret weapons recently?
no.
Yeah, someone in like
I'm gonna
in a
say that.
news conference was said something, and it was kind of unrelated. And then Trump's like, "Oh no, no country is going to try and attack us. You know, we got weapons that are much more destructive than anything anyone else has, uh, and we have stuff no one knows about, and they're just not going to do that." And then it came out on Info, or was a few days later, because Alex Jones talks to Trump every now and then, and supposedly the US even has like antimatter bombs now, which can basically vaporize like an
Yeah,
entire city.
again, we are coming from Infowars. We're coming from both Trump and Alex Jones. So don't
Well, think
believe
about it. We
everything
know how
you hear.
to accumulate antimatter. Why wouldn't they
Eh,
turn it into a weapon?
Where's the evidence of so-called and actual physical antimatter? Yeah,
Just look it
don't
up. It's
believe
been done for
everything you
ages.
read.
Well, I mean,
Where's the evidence?
Let's see.
he
I'll
does
tell you the evidence.
he does that.
Antimatter weapons. Come straight up.
What, Star Wars, Star Trek, or something?
Well,
See, this is
it's
I
a
want
secret
the
weapon, man. It's not
actual.
going to be published everywhere, but
this is
you can
where
see people talking about it.
Yeah,
no,
people got to talk. People talk about flat Earth theory all the time. Doesn't mean that the Earth is flat. People talk about, I don't know, the flat widening on the back of a turtle. Doesn't mean the Earth is widening on the
An
back of a
antimatter weapon is theoretically possible device using
Theoretically,
antimatter as a power source, a propellant, or an explosive for a weapon. Antimatter weapons are currently too costly and unreliable, estimated to cost about $6 billion for every 100 nanograms.
Yeah, and again, a question. Question.
The cost
I
of
won't go into
producing 1 millionth of a
point.
gram of antimatter was estimated at 62 billion US dollars in last year. By comparison, the cost of the Manhattan Project cost $23 billion. So, kind of doable, actually. I wonder how much you would need for like a bomb situation, because you wouldn't need much antimatter, really. That shit is crazy explosive.
Right here, ladies and gentlemen, on Untethered, only on Untethered. We're going to witness Mr. Robot causing Mark Edworthy's head to explode.
um,
So,
but yeah, it's still secret. No, it's not out yet. I'm just saying that's what Trump said the other day. And
Well,
then he
again,
also mentioned these
claims-
rods from God, which are the tungsten rods in space that it doesn't even really need to be an explosive. The rods, because they go like 32,000 miles a second, they can basically have the same power of a nuclear weapon, and it can penetrate like super deep underground. Um, and this is popular science, been proposed by the Rand Corporation in the 1950s. So you know they've definitely done it by now.
now,
But yeah, anyway, we were talking about not just weapon. Oh yeah, the defense shield, right?
the defense shield. Now, what exactly does that pertain to be more?
So they would be using SpaceX's satellites as an early detection system because they got 5G, right? And 5G is basically a detection system in itself because the microwaves can be detected coming back at the satellites, and it has millimeter resolution, so it can tell you within a millimeter where something is.
again,
And
millimeter only depending on the band, the frequency, and depending on how far these devices are separated from. There's a entire
5G
physics
is considered
argument there.
millimeter wave technology.
Yes,
Because
but
the
again,
wavelength.
in millimeter technology on Earth, these access points have to be fairly close together, something like I think 500 meters or something.
Well, if you're launching it from
Again, there is an
space, there's
entire
no obstruction.
physics.
It's line of sight, Mark. It's a line of
Yeah,
sight.
well, again, there's an entire physics argument.
The only thing that
Yeah,
obstructs it would be like something material, really. And if you're detecting a satellite that's in the, I mean, if you're detecting a launched nuclear weapon or something like that, it's in the sky. The waves would be bouncing off the missile and coming back at the satellite, and that would happen
yeah.
fast
In a
enough to
very
be an early warning system for.
in a very sort of similar sort of technique as radar works.
The problem is you still got to shoot these things down. That'll be the hard part because they're traveling at the speed of sound now. And as far as I know, there's no one that can do it yet.
Rather than shoot them down, disable them in one way or another.
Well,
That may
yeah,
be shooting them down. That might be some sort of I don't know other thing of disabling them.
if you had a powerful enough laser, maybe you could do it. I don't know.
Or some sort of software method.
Oh, they'd be
Somewhere.
protected against that, I imagine.
Where
Be
again, as we've seen in the world of computer viruses, or viri, as I prefer to use,
They, they have those
the
weapons that can take down drones, right? And Russia has now built new drones that are shielded against that. So there's definitely
yeah,
ways you
precisely.
can
So
shield
yeah,
stuff.
it's a war. It's if somebody comes up with one idea, somebody comes up with another idea to combat that idea, and onward we go.
Yeah, so Trump, Peter Thiel also funded the rise of J.D. Vance. He was one of his biggest funders. And yeah, it's he's a suspicious one, that guy. He's also funding military AI use, AI in military tech.
Yeah,
That's how he kind of. So he used his PayPal money to create military tech after he got rich from Facebook.
now, you're talking about Zuckerberg.
Well, he funded Zuckerberg in the early parts of Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. because I
So
had
he's always been involved in either intelligence or military, which is suspicious, in my opinion.
well, I always hold to the thing that the internet and freaking video games, all of it has always been involved with freaking the intelligence and also with the military. Period. You know what I mean? They go hand in hand, and Mark always argues with me because he's Mister Know It All. But
I don't always argue with you on these points. I may agree with you up to a certain point.
well, that's very small certain point, but
Well, it depends on
And
the
it's a
subject.
bold-faced lie.
you know, it's like he loves to use that word conjecture. You know what I mean?
Well, some of it is.
He's
Again,
misappropriating the word.
Again, depends on the specific subject.
Well,
Depends on your point of view.
No, that's not it.
It's actually a proven fact. That's the bad part. Like, I mean, you don't have to really do any major research on it. You know what I mean? As a matter,
It will proven facts. So you're saying everything you say all the time are proven facts.
dude, ARPA, DARPA, proven facts. It's historically recorded. Magnavox was involved in freaking developing freaking Pong, ping pong, which was used by the military on college students.
Again, we were talking when it came to this subject. We were talking about a wider sort of. We were having a wider discussion, and
It still pertains.
I was
It
talking
doesn't
about some great
separate.
universities and
It doesn't separate this freaking
taxpayers.
conversation, you know, because yeah, we started that conversation with gaming. Okay, don't get me wrong, you're right. That's where it started, and then we brought it up again. I think on Minds, I believe Minds Roundtable. But even here, it applies. You know what I'm saying? It's like freaking all of this stuff is connected, and it's always been connected. I get a kick out of people who try to make it out like the internet is this social network where it was created so that we can all freaking come together, hold hands, and give out free information to one another. That was never.
No, but that's just the outcome of it. It's not necessarily
No, that's the propaganda. That is the propaganda that you were sold into believing, and you believe it 100%.
No, I experience it
and you
every
get
day.
so pissed off because these governments are snooping on your
Remember,
information.
organizations
snooping on me.
Remember organizations like CERN and people like Lee Bennett were paid mainly out of taxpayers' money.
Right.
European Commission, British taxpayers' money.
Yeah, no. So that means you are paying these fools to freaking spy on your ass.
No,
Well, that's true. And we're paying them.
we would pay these people to come up with technological developments that would result in the World Wide Web.
Which would eventually track.
You can't deny that there's a lot of benefits to the internet, though, Roger.
Well, yeah, that's
You're getting spied on. It's your own goddamn fault.
That's the exchange.
Take your ass.
That's the exchange of freaking giving up your freedom of privacy. You see what I mean? Like,
Well, you don't need to give up your privacy. Just
no, that's
don't
what
put
the
your real
internet.
name out there. And the
That
only
is-
thing now that I'm really more concerned about is being on podcasts. They can do voice analysis on you. So unless we get voice scramblers in the future, which will be pretty interesting because we'd all sound like Darth Vader talking to each other.
You're right. You'd love to sound like Darth Vader. Everybody knows.
I would. Then I'd be really Mr. Robot.
If if you did want anybody to identify you in any sort of form, then you shouldn't be communicating at all.
That's just nihilism. Don't do that. Never go full retard.
All
right, what's the next topic? Let's continue.
Okay, now this is actually where we start getting into what we're talking about. Well, no, actually, before that, disinformation office is closed. The United States has freaking shut down the disinformation office here in the United States. And I got so carried away, I forgot to pull up the article.
Sorry, I'm smiling because when you say the disinformation office, it reminds me of Orwell's 1984, the Ministry of Truth and Room 101.
Well, see, that's the thing that is so weird about it, because like this also has to do with a lot of this. Well, a lot of the stuff we were talking about too, because what it is the U.S. State Department closing office aimed at counter foreign disinformation. Okay, now this actually is something that has to do with Operation Mockingbird back in the 1960s. It was found out that disinformation was being pushed out in Europe and then pushed into the United States. Okay, JFK made a big speech about it, and they created they created this organization out of it, and now
now it's been weaponized to create lawfare against the people and censor their speech. By calling everything they don't like disinformation, and then they basically just squash it.
Exactly. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday he was shutting down a State Department office that had sought to counter foreign disinformation, accusing it of censorship and wasting U.S. taxpayer money. Rubio, in a statement, said he was closing the State Department's Counter Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Office, previously known as the Global Engagement Center.
Oh my God! Can you get any more Orwellian than that?
Yeah,
America's so great.
You see,
also in theory,
foreign information manipulation,
wouldn't the country information or misinformation department be a violation of that?
Well, they're not meant to be. They're not meant to be propagandizing their own people. That's the thing. But they were, and so yeah.
This is
a good argument. It's a violation of First Amendment.
See, this is
they're only meant to propagandize us.
This goes back to what I was saying, and yes, you're right. That is true. We're only supposed to propagandize you because here in the United States,
for it.
Now listen to this. So here in the United States, okay, we have actual laws that are codified. Okay, and I always say this. I'm like, here in the United States, we need to be careful about making stupid laws, setting up stupid freaking organizations.
I would say in any country, UK being a good example.
Well, the problem is that people have no choice in what laws get made. They can only elect a leader, and then those laws.
At some point, we do.
You can go to your MP. You can go to your senator and congressperson.
And what forces them to listen to you?
You and a group of people that you can gather who are willing to stand up with you and create a freaking organization that'll fight against that.
The only way you can do it is by creating a militia and having real power. Because, like, everything else, you're just trusting bureaucrats.
Are your MPs not answerable to you? Are the people that
not
you
legally
elect that is meant to be representing you not answerable to you?
You're under suppression by the freaking Queen of England. So like you,
Queen?
well, the
It's the
king
king
now.
now, the descendant of Count Dracula.
So like the king is the one who's of England is the one who's responsible for all of that. You know what I'm saying? He's the one that mandates. Look, we're going to have to shoot these guys with rebel or rubber bullets.
Oh, that's done
Well,
to
technically, he is the
the
one that's
no,
responsible for everything.
Yeah,
technically in under the Commonwealth rules, and that'd be for the two sections of whichever country's parliament. So government. So
At the very beginning of our constitution, it says it says the queen, but it'd be the king now is like the sovereign of this nation. So everything comes under them,
yeah,
and therefore they are technically responsible for everything that goes on here. I
right,
mean, they delegate power and stuff like that, but ultimately they're the one responsible because they claim to be the only sovereign being in the country.
right,
but
Um,
I've made this argument quite a few times. For a long time, well, since World War Two. Um, any laws made within the Commonwealth, including the UK, are sanctioned by the.
Ultimately, laws are only there for the people,
And
or they
really,
should
it's
be,
so
and it
it
should be
has to
by the
be kind of
consent of the
understanding.
people. If you
right.
don't consent to the laws, they have no power over
And then
you unless
see,
you
that's
believe
how
it.
things work here in the United States. We are the true free people in the world. So you got to be careful when you listen to English
If you
people.
can keep it, Roger. If you can
Right,
keep it.
Again, Roger, you were saying the opposite yesterday in the chat session, and I remind you about the old government by the people, for the people, of the people.
that's exactly what this is about here in the
Yeah.
United States. This is how we do it. You see that
But do
it's
you remember what
sad.
happened after you became free? The King of England came over there and started bloody shooting you guys. And then what happened after that? Civil war with the Freemasons.
Well,
Uh,
let me kind of throw that out the door and tell you how it really took place. Okay, like first, when you go to war with somebody back in those days, you have a declaration. Our Declaration of Independence was given to the King of England. That's just a declaration. That means we're not free yet. Okay.
Mm.
So we in order to become free, we had to fight that war. And after that war was done, that is when we came out with the Articles of Confederation, which failed. And in secrecy and in the dead of the night, freaking all of these elitist Americans came together to create what we now know as the Declaration of Independence. And if it wasn't for a radical by the name of Andrew Jackson, we would have never, as poor people, had the right to frickin' vote here in the United States because the elitists wanted to keep the voting rights for frickin' people who were landowners and rich because they felt that if they allowed poor people to frickin' vote, they would be influenced by the money of the rich and that would sway the voting system.
As you see now with the US elections, with no financial caps on them. But I argue that
and
that would never have happened if it wasn't this one bloke, because we can make arguments that similar sort of things happen in Europe and across the world.
but look at you now. You're still ruled by elitists. You know, they have all the money. They have all the
uh,
power. They
we
run the politics.
democratically vote them in. We elect them.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know. It's a money game over there. You know, you can't really get elected unless you have at least $1 billion behind you. It's
Yeah, but
because we sold the media to
unlike the US
the
system,
Jews.
we have got caps on how much can be spent on any one election, and I believe that sticking caps on the expenditure is actually a good thing in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Now,
A
the
cap on elections.
one thing I do want to mention too that I forgot to mention about tariffs is these tariffs I believe are going to be different than what the original classic definition of what tariff is because they're supposed to be freaking no tax tariffs. That means that freaking no taxes can be applied from the businesses towards like the taxes they get from these tariffs. They won't be pushed onto to the consumer. You know what I'm saying? The
Bullshit.
actual
No, 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 no.
the
Surely it would be.
Um, if a company has to pay more than it has got two options: either reduce resources, so reduce employment, or push the cost onto the consumer.
there's a third one. There's a third one. They need to start buying locally and stop buying all of this freaking
Yeah,
garbage
but
overseas.
yeah, which goes back to my Apple and Nvidia point
And
earlier.
I actually see that as a positive thing because if
Hmm.
it forces you guys to freaking set tariffs, then that means you're going to do the same thing in your countries. You're going to start buying locally within your own countries and stop freaking doing this. Oh, it's more important to freaking import our goods
That,
rather
that's
than.
not
Well, I think that
that's
is
not
important.
that's not true when you look at things like the net zero thing concept. I mean, um, um,
That
we've
that's
got
that's another just
still.
like globalist agenda right there.
We have had an entire argument about is this Scunthorpe steel factory recently, and which is the only steel manufacturing factory in the UK now. And we are buying in steel mainly from China.
Isn't that pathetic?
Yeah, and obviously, if there was ever a conflict with China, then that raises issues of
Got you by the balls.
security. Yeah,
You realize that freaking Ireland, right next to you, has the largest freaking copper mine in the world.
He
and
wouldn't
funny
know
enough,
because he hates the
only
Irish.
within the last couple of days, there's been since Tony Blair has criticised the UK government for the net zero policies and high prices. There's been questions about starting fracking operations in this country. We are sitting on one of the largest gas um, deposits in Europe.
Yeah. It's amazing when I think of that. And the copper mine that I mentioned, by the way, is closed. They shut it down. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Oh.
And it's the largest freaking copper mine in the world. It was in use for well over 2,000 years. Okay. And then one day
Yeah.
they decided, no, we don't want that no more. So they shut it down.
And they're shutting
How,
down electricity production all
profitable.
around the world. And they're
Yeah.
killing
How
all the
profitable.
cows.
So let me go ahead and get to the next topic. This one is about the Justice Department. The Justice Department filed a joint motion with lawyers for President Donald Trump in the appeal in a ruling in a defamation case levied by E. Jean Carroll against him for comments he made back in 2019. Trump was found liable for defamation by a jury in 2024 for comments he made denying Carroll's allegations of sexual abuse. He was in office during his first term as president when he made the remarks. The president now, in his second term, is appealing the decision in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. In a filing last week, lawyers for both the DOJ and Trump argued that the Justice Department believes the president's comments fall under the Westfall Act, which gives government employees immunity for conduct that falls under the scope of their job. The motion also called for the DOJ to substitute the president's lawyers in the case as the defendant or appellate. Now, substitution is required because once the Attorney General certifies that a defendant is acting within the scope of his office or employment, the United States is the party defendant unless a court, unless and until a court rules that the contrary. To the contrary, the filing said. So that got a little confusing. Now, the filing also included a certificate from Kristen Wilkinson, director of the Torts Branch Civil Division in the Justice Department, that Trump acted within his scope of employment as president when he made the comments in question in 2019. On the basis of the information now available with respect to the claims asserted therein, I find that Donald J. Trump was acting within the scope of his office or employment at the time of the incident out of which the plaintiff claims arose, Wilkinson said in a filing with the court. And then
This is clearly political prosecution, lawfare.
I'm not going to say yes or no on this one.
What I don't get is how is denying an allegation defamation? You're just aren't you just defending yourself? Like, isn't defamation when you like accuse someone else of something and it's not true?
Right. Now, Westfall Act claims were initially supported by the DOJ when the case was proceeding through federal district court in July 2023 under then President Joe Biden. The department dropped its support for the claim that Trump was acting under the scope of his job as president. The Justice Department now again under Trump is attempting to renew these claims as the president's appeals the Justice Department now again under Trump is attempting to renew these claims as the president appeals last year's jury decision. So that's going on.
Can't really comment on that because it's a active appeal and need to see all the evidence.
Now, when it comes to this, it does seem kind of like redundant. You know what I mean? I think it is politically motivated, like Mr. Robot says, and this is. I mean, it's like they're coming at them with everything but the kitchen sink, and I'm surprised this is still going because all of this other politically motivated crap got dropped, like all that stuff in Georgia, gone. You know. The only reason why I voted for Donald Trump was for
Georgia.
Here's some more evidence. 220 lawsuits in 100 days. Trump administration faces unprecedented legal blitz. And I remember seeing...
that's not evidence.
Well, it's evidence of political persecution. And I saw a video. I can't remember the guy's name, otherwise I bring it up. But it's this Jewish guy. He's a prominent dude in the US. I can't remember if he's a senator or something like that. But anyway, he before Trump got elected, he was bragging on TV that he already had 100 lawsuits planned against Trump, and it was going to be a way to like throw a spanner in the works or like, you know, take him out or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there were people coming after him for sure.
But if these lawsuits are not can be proven not to be or to be innocent, or Trump being innocent on these lawsuits, then big deal.
Well, yeah, the thing is, it's, occupies time and resources.
Again,
This is
what again? It's
say something else.
just entertainment.
No,
As I keep remind people, to use the UK British expression,
this
today's
is the
news is
foolish.
tomorrow's chip paper.
This is the foolish thinking of today's freaking generation. Okay, people think that it is entertainment. I mean, like I said, to sue and to be sued is a constitutional right here in the United States. Well, you're
Yeah,
actually seeing it. You're seeing government taking place. Okay, you don't have to agree with these people. You don't have to disagree with these people, but you have to admit at least freaking constitutional government is being played out. You know what I mean?
But it's also a vulnerability, Roger,
No,
because if it's meant to be done in good faith.
no,
When
it's not.
people abuse the system and sue
Everybody,
people for no reason, just to
everybody has the right to do it. It doesn't, and this ethical bullshit. Let's take that and fucking just throw it out the window, dude. Oh, I've got to be ethical. If you,
I'm not saying ethical. I'm just saying when
that's,
people abuse the system for things that it's not intended for,
that's the
that can turn into like a vulnerability or a method to suppress people or to
get
do
what you're
something
saying.
not good.
I get what you say, Mr. Robert, and I do agree with you partially. But I also agree with Roger. It is demonstrating that the system is functioning.
okay.
Flawed.
No, not fault.
So,
It
so,
is
so,
functioning.
so
Irrelevant
far,
of flawed
here's
or
an
not
example.
flawed, it is functioning.
Okay.
No, but here's the thing, right? So Trump has made a mandate that transgender people should be banned from the military. Now they're suing him for that, so that stays in place, right?
Mhm.
And that you could argue that is a vulnerability for national defense now, because they've put a whole bunch of people that aren't like 100% mentally capable or like at least emotionally potentially unstable in the military.
Right.
Okay, and the other thing was he wanted to make the
Whoa,
government.
whoa, 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 whoa. Be very careful there, because you're you're on
Well,
dangerous grounds there.
first of all, thinking that when you're a man, thinking you're a woman, that is on its face like a mental condition already. My point is, besides all that, the Trump was elected by the people to do the things he said he was going to do, and that was one of them. And the other one was to make the government more efficient. Now these people are coming after him in the courts to try and stop that from happening. So they're literally working against the will of the people through lawfare.
Well,
And
hold on.
I'm just saying that is a vulnerability in the system,
Now, see,
and that's
this.
not what it was intended for. Here
Let me
it says,
let me kind of step
that's
in here.
what-
Hold up. Before we go farther on that, let me kind of explain to you something about the process. Okay. Now you say that it's a vulnerability and all this, but that's not the end of the story. Okay, hold
Mr.
on.
Robert is
Now, let me.
framing this.
They go to the court system and they speak their mind to the court system. Now that has to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court makes an interpretation of it. If their interpretation is correct and they feel that it is valid, then they freaking have to make the interpretation in the Constitution according to the constitutional law. After that, if freaking Congress feels fit to create that law that says freaking either homosexuals can or cannot be in the military, then they can create that freaking law. Okay? But they have to go through that process in order to do it. After that's done, then it's up to the executive branch, which is the freaking president and his cabinet, to freaking enforce that law through the Department of Justice.
the problem is they've got a whole bunch of bad actors in Congress, in the Department of Justice, bought off by people like Soros, and the WEF even openly bragged about it, that they owned like most of Congress. So now the system is, basically non-functional because it's not going through a good faith system. It's being bought off, and that's why I think the president, correct me if I'm wrong, has the power to do the executive actions to be able to correct stuff like that, isn't it?
And right now, timing is important. You got to understand that Congress and or the executive branch, which is the White House, and freaking Congress is all dominant Republican conservatives.
Mm.
You're muted, Mark, I believe.
Mine?
Oh wait, okay, never mind. I was on the stream,
I just, yeah.
but I seen your mouth. But you got to realize that they have a certain amount of time where they need to get this stuff passed, or they need,
Totally.
you know what I mean? If
You
they,
didn't see the Democrats holding back, right? Like, as soon as they had the power, they were just going for it. Whereas the Republicans tend to drag their feet for a while for some
well,
reason. I don't know.
Trump is an idiot when it comes to that shit because he turned around, he got in on his first term, and he started saying, "Well, forgive and forget." And this is
Yeah,
after everybody
right.
kept saying, "Put or fucking lock her up," and I was one of
Yeah.
those people that was saying lock.
Arguably, Trump in his first term was unprepared for realism. You could
Well, he was
call the
unprepared for
first term
the
being
shit
an
fuckery in
exercise
Washington.
for him. And yeah,
Yeah,
you could
he
say
was a
that.
cat that walked into a tiger match, and I think
Why?
he's a lot more wise this time. But the problem is he's let them water down his power by taking out people like what's his name, the guy that was going to be the head of the Department of Justice, Eats Mark. You know the guy. They basically
No,
said, "Oh, he had a sex scandal. He was like tangentially involved, but not really." And then he just quit. And then
Yeah.
they put in Pam Bondi, which is just completely fucking retarded. Um, she hasn't been able to pull off anything, and Trump keeps like congratulating her when she hasn't done anything. Um, what's
Th-
his name? I
This
don't
goes
know
back
now.
to the hot chick thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Well, he's got a bunch of daughters, and I think he sees her as like a daughter almost, or something.
no,
I don't know.
that's
I
not.
mean, I mean, a good thing in UK that we occasionally have cabinet reshuffles. In fact, I'm expecting a cabinet reshuffle in the next couple of months after yesterday's local elections. But in the US, it's these sort of cabinet reshuffles are not all that common.
In the U.S.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, the reason why is because they have to work around that. Now, people do their terms, and then they have a certain amount of terms they can do. So what they do is they take a break and they switch to another freaking political um, seat. Okay, so the thing of it is you can actually own more than one house, right? So if you go outside of a district and you buy a house outside of a district, you can wait a year and then go into that district and run for office.
Same in this country. You have local elections. Not sure about the data for yesterday's, but in the past you've had local elections where the candidate didn't even come from that area. So
Okay, so
the guy's name is Matt Gates. Yeah, have you heard him speak before, Matt Gates?
no, I've never had a chance to.
Oh man, he is
not that.
awesome. He was like, he's a weapon, man. He calls it
Yeah,
like it is. I'm sure you've seen his face before. This guy.
I'm just
Uh,
yeah. Lawyer and
he
former.
just like calls them out hard, man. He would have been the best for the job by far, and I'm so
Yeah,
disappointed quit.
who
He would have had all the Epstein
was
files
the
on
US
his by now.
representative for Florida First Congress.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Gates.
they accused him of child sex trafficking and statutory rape, apparently, which was total bullcrap. And
Did he go to
then
court?
he just didn't want the heat on Trump because he wasn't elected yet, and so he quit or
Yeah.
something like that.
Were those allegations brought out in the court
No,
case?
it was never tried or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what's so suspicious about it. You know what I mean? Because like they made
Yeah,
the
it's just an
allegation.
allegation, right? They can just throw any allegation at you, and it looks bad in the media. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's what it's turned into. Like nobody's actually saying, "Freaking, let's take this to court." You know what I mean? It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna run and hide, dude, because I don't want my name freaking drug through the mud."
That's why the media is the greatest weapon in the U.S. and it can destroy anyone without a trial, without a jury, without anything.
Okay, so
That's true throughout the world. The BBC, Sky.
But my point was, in his first term, he did poorly because he surrounded himself with people that weren't loyal, that weren't on his side, all sorts of stuff like that. And by letting stuff like this happen, he's letting the opposition know that all they have to do to like get him to do what they want is to accuse people of things, a bit of blackmail here and there, but he has gotten better though. He's just fired his head of was it the military? He fired the head of the military, and he's just fired that guy who invited the newspaper guy into the Signal chat just the other day. He fired him as well. So,
he had good cause to fire.
So, with that being said, this is where we're going to turn it over to you, Miss Robot. I put the link in the private freaking chat on the sides for the topic that you wanted to talk about, which is up. And this one has to do with populists are gaining power and keeping it. What comes next? So,
okay, I'm just trying to find the thread that it was on.
Okay. Well, I've got the link. I've got the link that you posted in the chat.
Oh yeah. Can you like reply to it again in?
No, it's right here in the private live chat.
Oh, okay, but I posted a whole bunch of links. Remember, if you can find that thread, you probably didn't see it.
Which site?
It's on Politico, is what he got. So
the
one that he posted.
Let me try and find this thread.
You want me to put it on our chat?
It's all right. I'll find it in a second. Here it is.
It's
so basically, I wanted to just talk about how people are starting to wake up to the great scam that's being played on them.
Don't run through that whole thing yet, because freaking like go into your article and discuss.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, fact basics.
Yeah.
So this is about populism on the rise, and I noticed this first started in like 2022, and then when was this one this one has only just been published recently. In 2017, Donald Trump was almost the only nationalist populist leader in the West. Liberal democracy, its protection at home and its promotion abroad was the political default across America and Europe. The United States' marquee conference for hard right conservatives, CPAC, featured only one major foreign speaker that year. Britain's Nigel Farage, who who had just resigned leader of the United Kingdom Independence Party after a successful Brexit campaign. They proved that Brexit was also basically a psyop by the intelligence community as well.
Please.
No, it's true. Cambridge Analytica and all those companies, they swung the vote. But anyway, I digress. 8 years later, I'll prove it to you later, Mark.
Yeah, you'll have to.
8 years later, Trump had joined on the world stage by a plethora of right-wing populists, and nationalism had become mainstream. CPAC 2025 was a verifiable international event with guests ranging from Argentina's President Javier Milei to Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico to Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, among many others. But while it's clear that nationalism is having a great moment, for now it's just that, a moment, supposedly.
I love the language that is coming out of this article, the hard right.
Yeah, clearly. Well, Politico has always been sort of against Trump.
Politics, it's not necessarily about nationalism. It could be, you could also talk about small government in this respect. The framing of this article is somewhat questionable.
Well, definitely. It's Politico. Need I say more? Yeah. But I just did a quick search on what I was kind of getting at.
Again, be careful with sources.
I think that's the main thing I wanted to say from this article. Just to basically say that, there is a moment in time now, thanks to Trump mainly, that populism has become more mainstream than what it was.
Again, be careful about the term populism. That has been misused quite a lot lately. And as I pointed out to you yesterday, populism just means a party that is popular. So you could argue
it's the word they're using, populist.
The party that become a government is in effect popular because they receive the majority of the votes.
No, that's not. I don't think that's how it's being used.
I know how it's being used, and it's again, I question the efficacy of this and objectiveness of that article.
Now hold on a minute. Hold on. We're at 2.5 hours. This is where we're going to get back to this topic, but before then, we need to take about a 15-minute break. You guys go get your coffee.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't noticed yet, Mark Edworthy is our token naysayer, British complainer extraordinaire. Do not be surprised when he disagrees with me vehemently.
Exactly. And so everybody knows.
You tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Well, that's why I brought up the dictionary right here, Matt.
Hold on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this music on. It's this music that freaking I have put together that's all from Mark or Mr. Robot.
Before you do that, I just want to point out here to Mark, populist is a member of a political party claiming to represent ordinary people against the establishment. There we go, right there in the dictionary.
Okay, so
that's one, definition. Yeah,
I'm gonna go get a coffee.
Go get a coffee. Go get a coffee.
There are several definitions there, so yeah. Anyway, coffee.
Cool. And we will be right back, guys. We're going to take a quick break.
Awakening from an epic dream, awakening from the long dark night. Awakening from history, awakening from duality. The liberation of the human soul to consciousness of the one and all. The culmination of the sacred plan, the birthing of a new man, a new man. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Awakening to new perceptions, awakening to the joy of life. Awakening to a new dimension, awakening to a paradise. The illusion of separation disappearing into unity, into the source of a high vibration, into the wonder of the mystery, a mystery. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around a rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around a rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled around. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot round a rolled round, and if Mr. Robot round a rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around a rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around a rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot Mr. Robot rolled around a rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around a rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Hardly had his Hail Highness hurt the easy hedgehog when he hit the hummingbee by the hunter who had horrible beetles in the human hall. I love to hear the horse's hard iron hooves go hammer, 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 hammer on the easy highway. I hit my horse hard. I'm hurrying out to hunt up hogs. Theophilus Whistler. 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 Theophilus Whistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve of unsifted thistles, plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Whistler, thistle sifter.
Once the gods carved earth like a cosmic chessboard, Poseidon claimed Atlantis, his star-born accord. 10 twin suns, throne of tridents waits at his command. Empire stretched from Big stones to Mayan sand. Monolith stacked like Legos blocks no grain could lift. Sonic levitation, gods don't need pulleys or grit. Athena taught Athens, Hephaestus forged veins of gold, but Atlantis spires pierced heaven's stories untold. Years of virtue, divine blood pure in the veins. No egregious geodesic temples where starlight reigns, but mortality crept in, diluted the grace. Go turn to rust, hubris eclipsed the god fast.
Souls of Atlantis, drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From these to Teutonical, the coalition are as above, so below. Cosmic empire of laws and princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walked the sea.
Watch the fall, saw vice crack the divine. Pyramids hung warnings, but they ignored the signs. Sky split with fury, tsunami swallowed their pride. Atlantis sank screaming, but blueprints survived. Baalbek's foundation, stones that define modern math. 1,000-ton puzzle, gravity's aftermath. Scholars still baffled how they align the stars. They rode cosmic currents, breaching space-time's bars. Now divers chase shadows where crystal cities gleamed. AI scans the ocean, but truth a half-dream. Dream Freemasons whisper maps in their lodges of lore. Plato's Critias, a metaphor or a war.
Echoes of Atlantis, drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From Giza to Teutonical, the coalition are as above, so below. Cosmic empire of laws and princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea.
They say Poseidon's seed still flows in our veins. In every megalith, every grid that restrains. The Dogon chart Sirius, temples guard the flame. But Atlantis tech, it's encoded in our DNA's frame. Zeus's verdict was fire, a flood and ice. Yet the Sphinx still stares, whispering sacrifice. Mortal minds crave power, but miss the design. True kings rule through resonance, not bloodline. Now decode the ruins, their psalms etched in stone. A star-born king's empire, now dust and bone. The hall of records buried neath Giza's cold gaze holds anti-gravity schematics from pre-flood days. Crystal engines hummed, organ fueled their might, till pride turned their frequencies dissonant blight. The Anunnaki fled, Mars colonies crumbled. Leviathan's bones in the Mariana rumbled. But Poseidon's ghost rides the Bermuda's mist. Evolve past the greed or drown in the abyss. Tsunamis smaller than gods crack continents like eggs. Jungles of Egypt drowned, turned to sand in Poseidon's regret. Mammals shrunk to lapdogs, skies choked by volcanic breath. Waves circled the globe thrice, 3 funerals for death. Up to Piston, rode the arc of frequencies, not wood. Up tetrahedron ziggurat where anti-grav pulses stood. While Atlantis sank, he spliced DNA and quantum seeds, stashed them in Göbekley's veins and Indus Valley reeds. Volcanic winter's curse, Zeus hit the reset, scorched the grids, erased the moon-ringed internet. Noah's not a shepherd, he's a star-born archivist, cracking hermetic scrolls in caves where mushrooms twist. The survivors crawl from mud with amnesiac eyes, built new gods from scrap metal and fallen skies. Now just a ghost in Atlantis' holographic horde. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's new. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's you. Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep, the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiahuanaco, their codes etched in awe. As above, so below, cosmic empire of lore. 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea. So when you see Stonehenge, Angkor Wat spire, know Atlantis lives in the quantum choir. The gods were myths, their mentors in code. Rise from the ashes, or repeat what they owe.
A block every 2 minutes. Hieroglyphs scream their pride, but not a how and what's written. Modern science scratches heads. These structures can't be mimicked. Copper tools, now scholars tripping. Logic thinly stretched and twisted. Ran an obelisk, 1,000 tons dragged across the sand. Today's crates can't lift a fifth. What force moved them by hand? Call the ancients primitive. Yo, that's pure delusion. Physicists today need miracles to crack their fusion. The high priest of Kemet mapped the stars with precision, while modern minds stay chained to 3D prison. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden with an allegorical crypt. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in symbolism. Secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemic pyramid ode. The sphinx who has water scars, a flood from ancient skies. Explosives crack the pyramids, no tombs, just hollow lies. Money stolen, nah, that's ego talk. A weak hypothesis, truths buried in the stars, encrypted in the myths. Sacred geometry, pagan songs, the roots of Christendom. Pythagoras knelt at their feet, Jesus learned the kingdom. Temples mirror Orion, Aztecs trace the same glow. Megalithic GPS, what's buried below. They split the lotus stem, hid wisdom at the core. Solomon's temple, just a copy of what came before. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden with them allegorical crypts. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in symbolism. Secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemy pyramid ode. Iron to gold, alchemy's flame, they mastered the unseen. Telekinetic levitation, Mars dust in their genes. Critics laugh, aliens have, but the proof's in the plasma. Why is the Dogon tribe no serious? Was a binary drama. Myths are metaphors, the truth's too bright to hold. Scattered in ruins worldwide, a map etched in gold. Themselves Negeru, gods with cosmic ships, gifted fire, math and law, then dipped beyond the eclipse. Now academia's gatekeepers mock what they can't measure. The scales of Ma'at weigh soul, not tech or treasure. Zet Tepe dawned when gods walked as king. Left blueprints in Gobekli Tepe and the Nazca line. The emerald tailor's truth burns through the scholar's denial. We're echoes of starlight reclaiming our trial.
Stare at the sky, feel the ache in your That's ancestral memory. We're all cosmic guests. The pyramids hum a hymn, rising call the divine. As above, so below, till the world's realigned.
Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt. Truth is spiral eternity script. Written in a language of symbolism. Gods we've been missing.
Okay, we are here. We're back. It's time to get busy. Now, that was brought to you by Illuminati on Hacker Radio. If you guys are on Rumble and you freaking want to help support us, stop by and say hi to him. He's a weird dude. Probably one of the weirdest dudes I've ever met. But with that being, I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. Robot, who is a completely different person that I was not mentioning before when I was talking about Illuminati and Hacker Radio.
I've heard of that guy. Remind me to ask him to send you some new music.
Now, he's got some cool stuff. I mean, a lot of the music that freaking he sent already actually fits into what I want to do with Untethered, because it's got a lot of good style to it. When the edited versions come out, which is going to be at the beginning of next year, you're going to love the introduction to this show, just so people know.
Okay. Nice.
And it's already scheduled too, by the way, just so everybody knows. I've got everything hooked up. We've got uploads like you wouldn't believe. We've got so much content coming in, it's flowing out of my butthole.
Nice. Yeah, I can't imagine anyone ever shutting you up.
Well, shutting us up. Remember, this is all of us. I mean, everything.
Oh, there's no shortage of content to talk about. That's for sure. It's never ending.
So here we go. Let's get back to the populists.
So yeah, we were talking about the rise of populism, and before we do that, this is an interesting bit of breaking news. Rubio says that Biden administration kept disinformation dossiers on prominent Americans, including Trump, Elon Musk, Alex Jones, a whole bunch of people. And he's releasing these documents now. So, yeah, interesting.
That's pretty good. Now, that's actually a part of the whole populist topic, to be honest with you.
All right. Let me bring up our definition again. So we're going to talk about a few suspicious, I would say, some people might say dubious political actions or events that's going on right now. And we'll talk about things going on in France, Brazil, Romania, Canada, and Australia for now. And we'll start off. We might as well do it in that order.
No,
First
actually,
of all,
hey, hold up. I've got those sorted out. So,
okay. You want to do them in a specific order?
Yeah, let's hit this populist thing, because this is actually a good conversation that popped up with us.
Political philosophy or movement that represents or is claimed to represent the interests of ordinary people, especially against the establishment. That's how I tend to use the word.
Now, the article that you came out with on the opinion, it was one thing that stuck out that really sparked a conversation with this three last night was the part where it says, but while it's clear that nationalism is having a moment, for now, it's just that, a moment. Now, they use the word nationalism with populist, and that is something that really stuck out with us. And I think that is something that really does need to be discussed too, because we had a really good conversation about that.
Just on that one point, just before we continue, what that article is saying is that they're in favour of globalism. They're in favour of no sovereignty. They're in favour of borderless countries.
That tends to be their agenda. So my sort of stance on it is there has been I don't know, in the last 50 years or so, there's been a sort of global takeover of Western nations by what is termed liberal democracy. But really, I would say that is a wolf in sheep's clothing, where the liberalism is actually authoritarianism and democracy is actually, elitist control of the people. And so since we have this new system of like basically fascism, nationalism is now like people are becoming interested in that again, and because it's not the leading, the dominant political philosophy, it's becoming it's being taken on by the populist movement, because it has worked in the past for places like Germany or whatever.
Just on a minor point, got to be very careful of the word liberalism, because that can mean two different things. You've got progressive liberalism, which you are talking about, and then you've got classical liberalism, which means smaller government, more control over, or more responsibility by the individual.
Right, and that's the United States Constitution. That's what it's set up on, is classical liberalism.
But you guys never had a liberal party in the US, did you? Or
at first we did, but then it got replaced slowly by conservatives that crept in, and I wouldn't even call them conservatives. They were more elitist Whig Party members who.
Well, that's what became the Democratic Party, isn't it?
No, not really. The Democratic Party is a freaking mutated version of what the Republican Party was.
You've got to be very careful about looking at the term Republican and Democrat in an historical point of view, because arguably since 1950 they've sort of swapped positions.
Yeah, that's right. Well, even more recent, I would say, because like in JFK's time, even the Democratic Party was more liberal. It was like, for power to the people, progressive, what would you call it? More rights to freedom of speech, all that stuff.
So you're talking about classical liberalism rather than progressive liberalism.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like it's swapped now, but classically liberalism comes from the word liberal or liberty, which is meant to mean freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And now it started off that way. That's how they sucked people into it. But now the psychopaths have grabbed onto that power of the people and basically turned it into authoritarianism. And like you saw just before, Biden was censoring his political opposition. He like impeached Trump multiple times, all this kind of stuff, censoring people.
And now you're talking about more progressive liberalism.
When you see, like, don't ever think that like the new form of liberal is the same as what it was before. Now, when you look at the classical liberalism, you have to look at John Locke, okay? You have to read John Locke's literature, and then after that, you go in and you look at the Constitution of the United States, and you'll start seeing similarities, okay? John Locke was exiled from England because of his beliefs, so don't mistake John Locke as being something that was implemented in England either, because England was against John Locke's belief system. He actually, I think he migrated to Sweden what was the freaking country where the Pilgrims actually went to before they came over to the United States? It was, Where all the hippies are, the ones that smoke all the dope and shit. Huh?
That was the US.
Amsterdam.
What's it? Dutch. There you go.
Dutch isn't a country. Dutch is
it was a Dutch
language.
country. It was a Dutch country. But that's where he ended up at, and then he started getting into more discussions about classic liberalism and discussing the right of the individual. And things of that nature. And also, let me point out something else. You'll hear a lot of people always talk about radicals, okay? Now, don't be fooled by that. That is not a new form of political movement that's taken place. Radicals have been around since the French Revolution. They are like an offset of what classical liberalism was, except for they believed in big government and excessive individualism, which means what we have today with the woke movements, where everybody wants each individual person to have their own personal rights, and they want transgenders to be given their own personal rights separate from, a regular normal person, you know what I mean? Whereas constitutional government and classic liberalism says that we don't focus laws on the individual, we focus it on everybody. Everybody has to follow these laws so that frickin' we have a justice system that is fair for everybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no identity politics, there's no group politics. Everybody is the same under law and under God.
Right.
Rendered upon Caesar.
Right.
I do agree with Elon Musk's view, though, that we need a better system to get rid of old laws that aren't applicable anymore. Because what tends to happen is we just accumulate all these laws, which basically is a limitation on people's freedom. And there needs to be a way to repeal these laws and get rid of them, especially if they're unjust laws.
Well, this is where we dive into.
Again, it depends on the jurisdiction.
This is where we start diving into socialism and national socialism and nationalists. See, all of that stuff, this is where I split when it comes to the supposed conservative party in the United States, okay? They call themselves conservative, but they aren't. They're really national socialists, pretending to be conservatives. When they start talking about eliminating laws that they feel is outdated, that goes against everything that the Constitution here in the United States stands for. Okay, we actually want to keep those laws so that later on, if the public opinion changes and we want to bring a law back into power, we can do that. So it stays on that codified law that I was talking about. You don't delete laws in the United States, okay? When you make a law, it stays, okay?
You can ratify a law, you can...
You kind of went blank.
So are
you saying you don't want to ever be able to
disband a law? No, you can disband laws in the US.
You can stop using laws, okay? But once that law is introduced, it's there. Now, for example...
Are you saying that's a good thing?
Yes, it is. Because
Why?
Because people change over time, okay?
Yeah, but doesn't that mean the laws should change?
Well, whenever something happens, it doesn't...
Because what happens now is you can abuse an old law outside of context, you know what I mean, for the modern day. But because that law is there, you can still apply it. And that's happening now.
Then that means that people who are making those laws should be very, very responsible about the way they make laws, okay?
But that's not going to happen, Roger, because there's such a thing as money, and politicians love it.
It did happen at one time when people were actually doing what they were supposed to be doing. Now, see, in the United States, we believe that freaking laws shouldn't be just automatically passed, or we should. We originally didn't believe that. We believed that they should have been thought through very carefully. That's what our founding fathers wanted. They wanted laws that actually took time and were debated on and discussed, so that it didn't just affect us. It affected our children and our grandchildren, and it would say, okay, now 50 years down the road, we don't want our kids to have to go through this or this or this. So they didn't want freaking that to happen. That it was very thought out. As time went on, people began to incorporate freaking this idea that we need fast, speedy laws. And I personally believe that it came from Europe. It came from England. It came from freaking.
I would actually disagree with England because if you ever look how our laws are created, generally speaking, the laws will be a bill will be announced in the House of Commons, and then will be reviewed, then will be passed to the House of Lords, then will be reviewed, and this can happen 3 times. And then once it's agreed upon, then it's for the monarch to rubber stamp it.
But so here's the thing: when you read the U.S. Constitution, it sounds like they experienced an abuse of power back then by the monarch, and that's why they wanted to create a new country. And so they've seen what happens if you abuse these powers, and that's probably why they were so careful with the initial laws and like constitution and stuff.
Exactly.
But what happened over time also is like there became like as America became richer, there was more money at stake when and like you know corporations came into the play where they could incentivize politicians with millions and millions of dollars if they passed laws for their buddies and stuff like this. So now what happens is these laws end up getting passed, even like things that limit your power, like your freedom of speech, for example, with the new anti-Semitism laws and whatnot. And like there's no way to get rid of it now. And now these laws can potentially be abused in the future. Yes. And what I'm saying is there needs to be a mechanism for the people to go, no, we don't want that.
Even in the US example, where you might not be able to repeal a law, you can amend the law, can change the context of the law.
Right. And there's no guarantee that anybody's ever going to go back to those laws. But understand they're still there, okay? They're not gone.
Yeah, which to me means like, you know, in the future there's going to be some stickler lawyer going through the ancient laws trying to find something they can pin you on, you know?
Well, that's not in the future. That just recently happened. I mean, they pulled up that stuff with Trump on the immigration stuff. I mean, and that's an example of what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't want something like that taking place in the future for your future generations, then you should be careful about what you allow to become a law today, because that is a good example. Okay, nobody back then thought that it would be used so that they could do freaking mass deportations. You know,
well, it's kind of that's actually a lucky example. Like there could be much worse ways to abuse laws, but you're assuming that politicians are always going to have good faith, and you're assuming there's going to be no corruption, and you're assuming that no one's going to make a mistake. You know, I mean, it comes down to like 1,500-page laws.
That was also anticipated into the Constitution.
This is the point of having a Senate and a Congress, or in the UK, or low chamber and high chamber in effect. So it can be the laws can be before they become acts. They can in the bill form. They can be reviewed by one chamber,
there's a public consultation and stuff.
By the next chamber and vice, yeah.
But here's the thing, Mark. This is what happens here, right? Is like they won't announce that a new law is coming. So there's only like a few weeks where there's public consultation, and they'll take like people's statements on it and whatnot, but they won't tell you that it's happening. So it'll just get snuck in, especially over holidays and stuff like that, or Christmas
In some
especially. They'll
cases,
stick
there are
like
very
crazy bills
limited.
through, and then
In
all of
some
a sudden
cases,
it's
there are very limited public consultations. I agree, but in Commonwealth countries, I'm not sure how this works as much in fact, I do actually, but you can always go on to, let's say, government website and review what legislations are coming up.
But here's the thing: no
and
one does that.
review,
No one actually goes and
yes,
reads
yes,
all
yes,
the laws.
yes.
Not even
That's the
lawyers.
point. It's because people don't mean
Right.
that it's not happening.
Yeah. So like
And-
sometimes
and-
they'll.
I gotta ask you something though, Mr. Robot. Who do you think's responsible for that information getting out? Like in the United States, we believe in a sovereignty. Okay, we believe that it's the people's responsibility to keep government in check. Okay.
Yeah, not us. We believe in subjugation
No,
and living under a nanny state.
Even in all Commonwealth countries, there is a thing called the Hansard review.
His face just froze.
He was about to say, "There's such a thing as the king, and he is our daddy." All right.
No, the Hansard is a transcription of every single word that is said in Parliament. Whilst people are sitting on those green benches, every single word is noted in a transcription.
I'm not saying there's no transparency. There's transparency. You can go look at that stuff. You can go look at the laws.
That's not constitutional, though. But I mean, transparency. Everybody keeps talking about this shit. Okay. I mean, come on, dude. What
in
the
the
hell?
US, this may not be.
My point is they can write a law that's ambiguous enough for like some sneaky lawyer to go and abuse it later on, right? For example, these internet censorship laws that has just come out, they've said, we don't want teenagers to be able to have access to social media because it's bad for them. But in order to do that, now every adult has to give their ID to get on the internet. You know what I mean? So, like, you can see how a law that's stated to have a certain purpose can be abused for another purpose, namely tracking and control of everyone in the country.
This is where the courts come in. This is where judges and the courts come into it to interpret the law, the legislation. I mean, as an example, the UK Supreme Court's ruling on what are males and females that happened only a couple of weeks ago. That clarified the 2010 Equalities Act and
All right,
specified.
tell me this, Mark. Tell me this. What species is a judge?
Okay, now hold up. I can actually talk a little bit about judges here in the United States.
No, but I just want to say a judge is a human being, just like you and me, who is fallible, all right?
Okay.
And open to corruption.
No,
Okay,
I mean,
we've seen this all over the place where judges have been bought off by rich billionaires to make
it goes
favorable
even-
decisions to their agendas.
it goes even deeper than that here in the United States. This is something that is really serious. Now, judges, when they take and put that robe on, okay, they become the law. All right. So no matter what their decision is, they are untouchable. They are immune from prosecution
They
or
basically have
litigation
more power than the president, don't they, or what?
while they're holding that
in the US. In the US specifically.
While they're holding that while they have that robe on, they're playing the part of the judge. Yes, they are the ultimate freaking power. They are like, they're stronger than the Power Rangers. Okay.
So why can you appeal the decisions?
It has
Why
to
is
be
it
approved.
criminal?
It has to be just like suing the government. It has to be approved by the frickin' court systems if you're allowed to sue them. Now, if they see that you have a
I did
honest
not say
case
sue. I'm not saying sue the
or
judges. I'm
or
just
or
saying
file,
appealing cases. You're
if they see
completely
any
true.
kind of case that is suitable for frickin' prosecution or lawsuit, then you're allowed to sue them. But first, you have to ask for permission to sue them.
No, I'm not talking about suing judges. I'm just
Well,
saying
let's
appealing cases.
you're talking about criminal cases too, right?
Yeah, appealing
Yeah.
a case. If I am convicted of
Now
something,
you
I
can you
appeal.
can if you want to appeal a decision, then you can just make an appeal. But I'm saying if you think that they have done anything that was corrupt or anything that was wrongdoing while they were holding or while they were wearing that robe behind the bench, okay, then you have to ask the court if you can frickin' sue them or if you can bring charges against them. Okay.
And here's the
Unlike in the
vulnerability,
UK,
right? Is Supreme, federal judges are appointed by the President of the United States Senate, right? And they have a 14-year term, which is multiple presidencies. So if you have a corrupt presidency, that becomes active in the next presidency. So they can still be malicious actors in the next term. And there's nothing you can really do about it.
unlike in the
That's
UK,
crazy.
where all public servants are subject to what we call the Nolan Doctrine, i.e. the Civil Service Code of Conduct, and all of them could, any public servant could be prosecuted under either misconduct in the public, conspiracy to commit misconduct in public office, or conspiracy to commit malfeasance in public office. And in theory, both of them can be custodial sentences.
Okay.
The current process for the president to fire federal judges is limited and strictly defined according to the Constitution. Federal judges, including the Supreme Court justices, are appointed for life and can only be removed through impeachment and conviction by Congress. Holy crap.
Now, see, that's kind of cool. That I actually like that. I think they should have lifetime terms. I was
Why is
kind of,
that?
I don't know.
If you have a corrupt judge, it's there for life.
To be honest, and when I first started thinking about it, I did have my issues. But then the more I started checking into it, the more I started liking that idea. First of all, it's cool.
So if you have a corrupt judge, you want to have him for life.
It goes back to what I said before. You need to make good decisions.
If they're mentally impaired, let's say they become 80 and they suffer from dementia, do you want them to be your judge?
Well, they have a right to step down if they want to.
Roger does.
Yeah,
well, they have a right to step down if they want to. Okay, now
they also have a right to remain if they want to.
Now, the thing that gets me is it does come back to what I was saying. It's like you have to make good decisions when you decide to do things like wanting laws and also voting in presidents and things like that. So, like, the reason why you have all these judges that freaking have lifetime terms and you don't freaking like them is because you decided that you wanted that president in office. Okay, who freaking...
That is indirect democracy, indirect power. The people don't have any direct control.
When you vote to
mind control is working on Roger Hansen.
No, let me explain to you how things work.
Before you continue, your grandfather votes for
he's getting blotted out.
Before you were alive, and that president elects a judge or puts in a judge, and that judge is still there when you are.
No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
That's what you suggested.
No,
that's what you suggested, though.
Judges don't appoint the next judge here in the United States.
No, I didn't say that. I said the president.
Okay, the president of the time appoints a judge. Okay, that judge stays in for a life term. Now you have to understand the
Why would
process.
you do that? That is
You
crazy.
have to
A
understand the
president
process.
can't do that. What? It's like a dictator.
This is
You know?
how it works here in the United States. Okay, now
Who the hell came up with that fucking scam?
listen, so I can explain this. It makes it to where you can at least understand it. Okay, you freaking you are the sovereignty. Okay, in the United States. Now, when you turn around and you vote for a House representative or a senator or the president of the United States, you turn around and you give them the authority to make decisions on your behalf. Okay?
Yep.
And when you do that, they go into freaking Congress and they go into the executive branches and they make those decisions for you. All right. Now, with these judges, their role is to interpret the law. Okay, so what this president has to do is come up with people who can sit on the Supreme Court and knows constitutional law. The best candidates who are capable of doing that, and that's what they do. They interpret the law. Now, it's gotten really popular with the media now where they think that the Supreme Court makes a decision, they interpret the law, they make a decision that this is unconstitutional, and bam, everybody needs to comply to it. That means that law needs to go away, and that's not the way it works. They interpret the law. Hold up, they interpret the law, and then it goes from the freaking judicial system or branch to the freaking to Congress, okay? And Congress is the one who creates laws. So the law is interpreted and then it's created through Congress, where it goes through the House of Representatives into the Senate. And after that, that is when the executive branch, the President of the United States, has to enforce the law through the